For centuries, biblical prophecy and Jewish tradition have pointed to the red heifer as a key element in the purification process needed to rebuild the third temple in Jerusalem. According to Numbers 19 in the Hebrew Bible, the ashes of a pure, unblemished red heifer are required for ritual purification, a requirement that has remained unfulfilled for thousands of years. Now, with recent reports confirming that red heifers have been brought to Israel, speculation is growing. Could this be a sign that a long-awaited prophecy is unfolding? This ritual isn't just a religious practice. It carries profound global implications. Many believe that the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem could trigger significant religious and political shifts, even fulfilling key end-times prophecies. But is this event truly a signal of the last days, or is it simply a historical tradition being revived? In this video, we'll dive deep into the origins and significance of the Red Heifer ceremony, its role in biblical prophecy, and why religious scholars, political leaders, and everyday believers are paying close attention. Stay tuned as we explore whether this ancient ritual is about to reshape the world as we know it. The Red Heifer ritual is one of the most mysterious and significant ceremonies in Jewish tradition, originating from Numbers 19 in the Hebrew Bible. According to this passage, God commanded the Israelites to sacrifice a completely red, unblemished heifer outside the camp. Its ashes, when mixed with water, were used for ritual purification, particularly for those who had come into contact with death. This practice was crucial for maintaining purity under Jewish law, as anyone who was ritually impure could not enter the temple in Jerusalem. The significance of the red heifer extends beyond individual purification. It is directly tied to the restoration of temple worship. According to many Jewish scholars, for the third temple to be rebuilt, a red heifer must be sacrificed to produce the necessary purification waters. Historically, only 9 red heifers were ever sacrificed, with the last one reportedly used during the Second Temple period, which was destroyed in 70 CE. According to Rabbi Maimonides, a famous Jewish scholar, the arrival of the 10th red heifer would coincide with the coming of the Messianic age. Today, as pure red heifers have been found and brought to Israel, many believe we could be witnessing the fulfillment of this ancient prophecy. But what does this mean for the Jewish people, Christians, and the world at large? If the red heifer ceremony takes place, it could signal the beginning of a profound religious and geopolitical shift. Jerusalem and the Third Temple have long been subjects of intense discussion and speculation. The idea of rebuilding the temple has profound implications for both religious observance and international relations. For many, the Third Temple represents a pivotal element in the unfolding of biblical prophecy. Jerusalem has been at the center of biblical prophecy for thousands of years. It is considered the holiest city in Judaism, the place where King Solomon built the first temple, and where the Second Temple stood before its destruction by the Romans in 70 CE. According to Jewish and Christian eschatology, Jerusalem is also the prophesied location of the Third Temple, which many believe will play a crucial role in the end times. The Temple Mount, where the previous temples once stood, is seen as the only legitimate site for the Third Temple's construction. However, this site is currently home to the Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque, making it one of the most contested religious locations in the world. Despite these challenges, some Jewish groups and religious scholars believe that preparations for the temple are already underway, including the breeding and arrival of red heifers, which are required for the temple's purification rituals. In prophecy, the rebuilding of the Third Temple is linked to the arrival of the Messiah in Jewish belief and the second coming of Christ in Christian theology. Some interpretations of Daniel, Ezekiel, and Revelation suggest that the temple's construction will mark the beginning of major end-time events. With growing anticipation surrounding the Red Heifer ceremony, many wonder, is this the final step before the Third Temple rises? If so, The implications, both religious and geopolitical, could be world-changing. The Red Heifer ritual is not just an ancient tradition, it is deeply tied to end-times prophecy in both Jewish and Christian theology. Many believe that its fulfillment could trigger major prophetic events, including the rebuilding of the Third Temple and the arrival of the Messianic Age. But interpretations vary widely across different religious and secular perspectives. In Judaism, the sacrifice of a pure red heifer is necessary for ritual purification, which is a prerequisite for rebuilding the Third Temple in Jerusalem. Many religious scholars believe that once the temple is restored, it will usher in the Messianic Age, a period of global peace and divine rule. The arrival of a qualifying red heifer in Israel has fueled speculation that this prophecy is nearing fulfillment. For many Christians, particularly those who follow biblical prophecy, the rebuilding of the Third Temple is seen as a key sign of the end times. Some interpret passages in Daniel, Matthew 24, and Revelation as indicating that the temple must be rebuilt before the Antichrist appears and the second coming of Christ occurs. The red heifer's arrival is viewed as a prophetic milestone in this timeline. From a non-religious standpoint, the red heifer ceremony is often seen as a historical or political event rather than a divine sign. However, given Jerusalem's geopolitical sensitivity, many recognize that religious movements pushing for the Third Temple could have significant global consequences. As this event unfolds, the world watches. Is prophecy being fulfilled, or is history simply repeating itself? The Red Heifer ceremony is not just a religious event. It has the potential to reshape global politics and interfaith relations. Religious groups, political leaders, and scholars are all watching closely because of its deep ties to biblical prophecy, Middle Eastern tensions, and the future of Jerusalem. From a religious perspective, many Jews see this as a step toward the Third Temple, while some Christians view it as a sign of the end times. However, for Muslim communities, any movement toward rebuilding the temple raises concerns, as the site of the former Jewish temples is now home to the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock, two of Islam's holiest sites. Politically, the prospect of temple reconstruction is a highly sensitive issue. Israeli leaders must balance religious aspirations with regional stability, as any move toward altering the Temple Mount's status quo could trigger major unrest in the Middle East. Additionally, world powers, including the US, the UN, and Arab nations, closely monitor developments to prevent escalating tensions. Whether seen as prophecy or politics, the Red Heifer ceremony could mark a turning point in religious history and global diplomacy, making it one of the most watched events in the world today. The Red Heifer ceremony is more than just an ancient Jewish ritual. It has the potential to influence religion, politics, and global stability. But could it truly change the world? The answer depends on perspective. For religious believers, particularly Orthodox Jews and Christian prophecy scholars, this event could mark the beginning of biblical prophecy fulfillment. If the ashes of a red heifer are used to purify the site for the Third Temple, it could set the stage for what many consider a messianic or end times event. In Jewish tradition, the rebuilding of the temple is a requirement for the Messianic Age, while many Christians believe it is a sign that the return of Christ is near. From a political standpoint, any move toward rebuilding the Third Temple could ignite regional conflict. The Temple Mount is one of the most contested religious sites in the world, and any attempt to alter its status quo could escalate tensions between Israel and Muslim nations. Governments, religious authorities, and international organizations would be forced to respond, potentially leading to global diplomatic crises. On a cultural and historical level, the ceremony's impact is already evident. The growing interest in the red heifer among religious groups, the media, and global leaders shows that this event holds immense symbolic power. Whether it leads to divine prophecy, geopolitical shifts, or religious revival, one thing is certain: the world is watching, and the consequences could be profound. The Red Heifer ceremony is surrounded by intense debates and controversies, both within religious communities and in the political sphere. While some see it as the fulfillment of biblical prophecy, others view it with skepticism or concern. The Red Heifer ceremony is surrounded by intense debates and controversies, both within religious communities and in the political sphere. While some see it as the fulfillment of biblical prophecy, others view it with skepticism or concern. Even within Judaism, opinions on the red heifer's significance vary. Some Orthodox Jewish groups believe that finding a pure red heifer is a sign that the Third Temple should be rebuilt, while others argue that the temple cannot be constructed until the Messiah arrives. More secular Jews dismiss the event as a symbolic tradition rather than a divine sign. Many Christians, particularly those who study biblical prophecy, see the red heifer as connected to the end times and the return of Jesus Christ. However, others in the Christian community warn against obsessing over these events, arguing that interpretations of prophecy are often speculative. From a political perspective, the biggest concern is the Temple Mount, where the Third Temple would be built. Currently, the site houses the Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque, two of the most sacred sites in Islam. Any attempt to change the status quo could spark violent conflict between Israel and the Muslim world. Additionally, international organizations and governments are closely watching, as a religiously motivated move to rebuild the temple could destabilize the Middle East. Ultimately, whether viewed as a prophecy or a potential crisis, the Red Heifer ceremony remains one of the most controversial topics in religious and geopolitical discussions today. The future implications of these developments are profound and multifaceted. This event holds the potential to reshape religious practices and influence geopolitical dynamics. As we ponder these possibilities, we must consider both the spiritual and political ramifications. With the arrival of red heifers in Israel, many are wondering when the ceremony will take place and what it could mean for the future. While an exact timeline is uncertain, reports suggest that the first eligible red heifer could be sacrificed within the next year if it remains unblemished and meets the strict biblical criteria. The ceremony would take place in Jerusalem, with its ashes prepared for future temple purification rituals. Experts and religious scholars are divided on what this means. Some Jewish religious leaders see it as a historic step toward restoring temple worship and possibly laying the groundwork for the Third Temple. Others caution that political tensions surrounding the Temple Mount make any moves toward temple reconstruction highly controversial. Many Christian prophecy scholars believe that if the Red Heifer ceremony leads to the Third Temple, it could be a key indicator of end times prophecy. However, skeptics argue that while the event is symbolically significant, it may not lead to immediate geopolitical changes. Regardless of interpretation, the world is watching closely. If this ancient ritual is revived, it could spark religious, political, and global debates like never before. And now, let's bring it all together with a final thought and a call to action. The Red Heifer ceremony is more than just an ancient ritual. It is a moment that holds profound religious, political, and prophetic significance. For many, it represents the long-awaited fulfillment of biblical prophecy, signaling the potential rebuilding of the Third Temple and the approach of end times events. For others, it is a symbolic tradition that sparks deep theological and political debates. We've explored the history and significance of the Red Heifer, its connection to Jerusalem and the Temple Mount, and the global reactions it is generating. With tensions rising and religious expectations growing, the world is watching closely to see what happens next. Will this ceremony change the course of history, or will it remain a powerful religious symbol without immediate consequences? Now, we want to hear from you. What do you think about the Red Heifer ceremony? Do you believe it is a sign of prophecy unfolding, or is it simply a religious tradition being revived? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth discussions on prophecy, religion, and world events. Stay tuned for more updates, and we'll see you in the next video.